My name is Lindsay Harper. I am 32 years old. For most of my life, I believed family was everything. When I was young, I carried that belief like a shield. I thought it would protect me. I thought if I worked hard, if I gave enough, if I sacrificed enough, my family would love me the way I loved them. Growing up, I was the quiet one. Daniel, my older brother, was always louder, stronger, the golden child who never seemed to do wrong in my parents' eyes. I was the girl who stayed in her room, studying late into the night, chasing scholarships so my parents didn't have to pay for my future. Even then, they never thanked me. But I told myself it didn't matter. Love was not about recognition. Love was about giving. And so, when life grew harder for them, I gave again. For the last 4 years, I carried the weight of their mortgage on my shoulders, more than $200,000. Month after month, I poured my salary, my savings, my time into keeping that house alive. But I did it in silence. I created a company, Divine Investments. A simple name, a quiet shell. Through it, I funneled the payments, hiding the truth from them. I thought I was protecting their pride. I thought if they believed they were paying on their own, they could still hold their heads high. I told myself it was worth it. I told myself that this was what love looked like. But love should not feel like a noose tightening around your neck. The truth came to me one ordinary evening. I was sitting at my small kitchen table, the blinds half closed against the fading Arizona sun. My apartment was quiet, almost too quiet. I remember the hum of the refrigerator, the faint sound of traffic in the distance. Then my phone buzzed. A simple notification. It was a message from my Uncle Richard. I hesitated before opening it. Richard was the outlier in my family. He had always kept a little distance from the rest, his voice calm when others shouted, his presence quieter, more thoughtful. He wasn't close to me, but he wasn't cruel either. And because of that, I opened his message. Inside was a video file. No words, no explanation, just a single attachment waiting to be tapped. My thumb hovered over the screen, my heart already racing, as if some part of me knew this was the moment everything would change. I pressed play. The image shook for a second before it steadied, revealing a room I knew better than any other. The kitchen. The kitchen of the house I had been paying for month after month, year after year. At the table sat my father Gregory. His hair was grayer than I remembered, but his expression was the same, stern, tired, heavy with disappointment he rarely bothered to hide. Beside him, my mother, Mary Ann, her nails perfectly painted, her wine glass balanced between her fingers, her lips curved into the familiar shape of disdain. And Daniel, my brother, my rival since childhood. His smirk was the first thing I saw, wide and satisfied, as if mocking me even from behind the safety of a screen. They were together, eating, drinking, laughing. And then they started talking about me. My mother's voice was sharp, slicing through the air. She only does it because she owes us. Without her, we would be just fine. I froze. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his laugh hollow and cruel. She thinks she's so smart, always trying to play the hero, but we're the ones who really keep this house standing. And then, my father. He didn't speak. He didn't laugh. He didn't argue. He just nodded. A small, silent agreement. But that nod, that quiet betrayal, cut deeper than any words could. The video ended abruptly, the image freezing on their faces. For a moment, I sat in complete silence. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out the world. I whispered, barely audible, "No, you don't mean that. You can't mean that." But they did. They meant every word, every sacrifice I had made, every dollar I had poured into their lives, every piece of myself I had given away. None of it mattered. To them, I was not a daughter. I was not a sister. I was not even a person. I was a burden. Tears filled my eyes, hot and bitter. I tried to blink them away, but they spilled over, blurring the screen, dripping onto my hands. I pressed my palms against my face, muffling the sound of my sobs. But then, slowly, the tears stopped. Something inside me shifted. I lowered my hands. My breaths came steadier. My eyes, still burning, fixed on the frozen image of my family on the screen. "You think I'm a burden?" I whispered. My voice was hoarse, but steady. "You think I owe you." I leaned closer to the phone, my reflection ghosting against the glass. "No," I said, louder this time. "You owe me." Because in that moment, I understood something I had been too blind to see. Family is not always a sanctuary. Sometimes family is the blade that cuts the deepest. Uncle Richard had known. That was why he sent me the video. And beneath it, one single message appeared. "You need to see the truth, Lindsay. They don't deserve what you've done for them." The truth. And once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. I sat back in my chair, the phone still in my hand. My apartment seemed colder, darker. The hum of the refrigerator felt louder, the ticking of the clock unbearable. For a long time, I just sat there, staring into the emptiness around me. And then I realized this was not the end. This was the beginning. They had called me a burden. They had dismissed me as weak. They had betrayed me in the house I kept alive. But now, the ground had shifted. Now, I was no longer the daughter who gave without question. I was the woman who would take back everything, and when the moment came, they would never see it coming. The morning after the video, I thought I had reached the limit of pain. My chest still ached from their words, and my eyes burned from the tears I had spilled. I told myself there could be no deeper wound, but I was wrong. The sun had barely risen when my phone buzzed again. A new message. The name froze me where I sat. Uncle Richard. I hesitated before opening it. My thumb hovered above the screen. Last night, he had shattered me with a single video. What could be worse than hearing my family call me a burden? What could be worse than seeing my father nod in agreement as my mother and brother mocked me? And yet, against my own will, I opened it. This time, it wasn't a video. It was screenshots. Dozens of them. Frozen images of a group chat. Words typed by the people who should have protected me. I tapped the first one. "Lindsay probably doesn't even have money anymore." I blinked hard, convinced I had misread. But the words didn't change. The next message followed beneath it. "We have to force her to give us $2,000 more every month. If not. 2 words. Dangling like a cliff edge, sharp and unfinished. But I knew exactly what they meant. If not, they would ruin me. If not, they would expose me. If not, they would find a way to destroy everything I had built. My stomach twisted. I scrolled down. "She owes us. She always has. She'll keep paying because she knows she has no choice." Then Daniel's name appeared, bold and unmistakable. "She thinks she's clever, but she's too soft. If we push the right way, she'll cave. She always caves. Cave, break, submit." That was who my brother believed I was. That was how little he thought of me. I set the phone on the table and pressed my palms against my eyes. A sound rose from my throat, low and raw, something between a sob and a laugh. "After everything," I whispered. "After everything I've done." The room spun. The air felt too thin, my breaths too shallow. They had already taken my love, my sacrifice, my silence. And now they wanted more. I forced myself to look again, to keep reading. Every new line was another cut, another reminder of what they truly thought of me. "She's too afraid to walk away." "She'll keep quiet if we threaten her." "She owes us her life." Each word dug deeper, but with each wound, something inside me hardened. They thought I was weak. They thought I was desperate. They thought I had no choice but to obey. But they had forgotten the truth. For years, I had hidden behind divine investments. For years, I had paid the mortgage through that name, never revealing it was me. For years, they sat in that house thinking they were its rightful keepers. But it was mine. Every brick, every wall, every inch, paid for by me. They were clinging to something that never belonged to them, and they had no idea. I picked up the phone again, scrolling back to Daniel's words. She always caves. My lips curled into a small, cold smile. No, I murmured. Not this time. I opened a reply to Uncle Richard. My fingers hesitated for a moment, then typed just 2 words. Thank you. I didn't need to say more. He had given me the truth, and the truth was all I needed. I pushed the phone aside and walked to my desk. Beneath it, I pulled out a file box. The weight of it grounded me, steadied me. I opened the lid and spread the papers across the table. Contracts, receipts, mortgage statements, signatures, every piece of evidence, every payment I had ever made, proof that the house was mine. I ran my fingers across the documents, feeling the edges beneath my skin. For years, these papers had been nothing more than a quiet reassurance. Tonight, they became a weapon. You thought you could use me, I whispered. You thought you could trap me, but you've already lost. The silence in the room shifted. It no longer felt heavy. It felt alive. Last night, I had cried until I could barely breathe, but tonight the tears were gone. The weakness was gone. All that remained was resolve. I stood in front of the mirror above my dresser. My reflection looked back at me. Eyes red, cheeks still streaked from crying, but something new lingered there too. Strength, clarity, fire. You called me soft, I said to the reflection. You called me weak. You called me a burden. I leaned closer. You forgot I am the one who holds the keys. You forgot I am the one who built the walls around you. You forgot I am the owner. I stepped back and exhaled slowly. The battle lines were drawn. They thought they were plotting my downfall, but what they didn't know was simple. Their plan was already collapsing. Their arrogance had blinded them, and soon they would discover the truth in the harshest way possible. That night, as I slid the documents back into the box, I no longer felt like a victim. I felt powerful, and I promised myself one thing. When the time came, I would not show mercy. The invitation came with a false sweetness. A quick call from my mother, her voice higher than usual, forced, as if she was trying to sprinkle sugar over poison. Come for dinner, Lindsay. It's been too long. We want to see you. I knew what it really was. Not a reunion, not an apology, a trap. Still, I agreed, because sometimes you have to walk into the wolf's den to understand how sharp their teeth truly are. The night was warm, the kind of Arizona night where the air feels like it's clinging to your skin. As I drove toward the house, my stomach tightened. Each block I passed made the air heavier, my breaths shorter. The house loomed at the end of the street, glowing under the porch light. My house, though they didn't know it yet. I paused at the door, the scent of grilled meat and garlic drifting into the evening air. It smelled comforting. It smelled like family. But to me, it smelled like betrayal dressed up as a feast. When I stepped inside, the table was already set. Plates gleamed. Glasses sparkled. Dishes crowded the center. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, bread still steaming. It looked like abundance. But the atmosphere was suffocating. No one smiled. No one embraced me. They waited until I sat down, until I picked up my fork, until the silence pressed so thick I could barely swallow. Then my father spoke. His voice cut through the room like a blade. Lindsay, he said, stern, deliberate. You need to contribute more. 2,000 more every month. No discussion. No excuses. I looked at him slowly, studying the lines in his face, the way his eyes avoided mine. For a moment, the child inside me wanted to argue, to plead, to remind him of all I had done, but that voice was gone now. Before I could answer, Daniel leaned forward. He wore that same crooked smile, the one he used when he thought he was clever. His tone dripped with mockery. "If you don't," he said, "maybe your nice clean job won't stay so clean." People dig into the past so easily these days, don't they? My fork stilled against the plate. The scrape echoed in the silence. For a long moment, no one moved. My mother sipped her wine, pretending to be detached, but her eyes glittered. She was listening. She was waiting. Inside, my heart pounded. Their words slammed into me, cruel and calculated. But on the outside, I smiled. A small, cold smile. I leaned back in my chair, my voice soft, steady, almost casual. "I'll give you my answer," I said. "In 8 days." The words hung in the air. My father frowned as if he hadn't expected defiance. My mother's glass paused halfway to her lips. Daniel's grin faltered for just a second, then returned sharper than before. "8 days?" he scoffed. "Why wait? Do you need time to beg for money?" I didn't answer. I only held his gaze, calm, unblinking. The silence itself became my reply. They thought they had cornered me. They thought threats would break me. But they had no idea that the countdown had already begun. 8 days? 8 days until everything shifted. 8 days until the stage I was building closed in around them. The rest of dinner passed in hollow words and empty chewing. They asked nothing about my life. They didn't care about the hours I worked, the sacrifices I made, the nights I went without sleep. They only circled back to the same demand, circling like vultures over prey they thought was already dead. But I wasn't dead. I was waiting. When I left that night, the air outside felt different, cooler, sharper. I breathed deeply, letting the night fill my lungs, letting it carve out the last pieces of weakness inside me. 8 days? That's what I gave them. Not as mercy, not as delay, but as a clock that would tick louder and louder until the moment the truth shattered their illusion, a clock that would carry them straight into my hands. I gripped the steering wheel as I drove away, the lights of the house shrinking in my rearview mirror. My reflection in the glass was calm, almost serene. But beneath that calm, fire burned. Fire and calculation. Because revenge isn't chaos. Revenge is art. And I had just marked the first stroke on a masterpiece they would never forget. When I returned to my apartment that night, the silence greeted me like an old friend. No voices, no laughter, no accusations. Just the steady hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. For the first time in days, the quiet did not feel heavy. It felt like possibility. I locked the door, slid off my shoes, and walked straight to my desk. The box was waiting, the one I had pulled out so many times but never opened completely. Tonight, it would all be laid bare. I dragged it onto the table, the weight of it pressing against my palms. When I opened the lid, the scent of paper and ink filled the air, sharp and dry. I spread the contents across the surface. Contracts, receipts, bank transfers, mortgage statements, every secret record of the life I had built in the shadows. At the top of each document, one name stared back at me like a mirror, reflecting the truth I had hidden for too long. Divine Investments, LLC, their house, their pride, their safe haven. It had never truly belonged to them. It belonged to me. I touched the corner of the deed with my fingertips, almost reverent, remembering the day I signed it. I saw the pen in my hand, the crisp suit of the banker, the cold marble counter beneath my arm. I remembered sliding the envelope of cash across and whispering to myself, "This is for them." Back then, I believed it was an act of love. Now, I realized it was the weapon I had been sharpening for years without knowing it. I sat back, staring at the documents scattered across the table like puzzle pieces. The outline of my plan began to form in the silence. First, I needed to time it perfectly. The mortgage payment was due in 8 days. 8 days until the clock struck and the walls they trusted to protect them began to crumble. I would wait until that deadline, let them feel the pressure of the payment, let them scramble and worry and whisper among themselves. And then, when they realized they could not cover it, that was when I would strike. Second, I needed to make my ownership undeniable. The papers in front of me were enough, but I wanted more. I wanted the strength of the law behind me. So I reached for my phone and typed out a message to an attorney I had worked with once before. A woman named Chloe Martinez, sharp and discreet. I need confirmation of ownership documents. Confidential. Urgent. Can you meet tomorrow? I knew Chloe would say yes. She was the kind of lawyer who could cut through stone with her words. With her by my side, no one could question the truth. Third, I needed to protect myself from Daniel's threats. He had hinted at digging into my past, at exposing me. I would not allow that to rattle me. In fact, I would turn it against him. I began pulling together my employment records, performance reviews, commendations, even old emails that painted me as diligent, careful, untouchable. And alongside them, I gathered evidence of Daniel's own failures, missed loan payments, gambling debts, reckless investments I had quietly paid off for him once, long ago. If he wanted to play dirty, I would show him what real dirt looked like. Fourth, I needed to set the stage emotionally. They expected me to return in shame, to beg for forgiveness, to hand over more money like a child handing coins to a parent. But I would do the opposite. I would let them believe they had me cornered. I would let them taste victory for just a moment. And then, at the precise second, I would pull the ground out from under them. I could already see it in my mind, the looks on their faces when I told them the truth. My mother's shock, my father's silence, shattering into disbelief, Daniel's smirk dissolving into fear. I whispered into the dark room, "I will make you watch everything you took from me slip right through your fingers." I sat for hours at that table, sketching it all out in my notebook. Each day of the 8 was marked with tasks. Day 1, confirm all legal paperwork with Chloe. Day 2, arrange access to the mortgage account and freeze their ability to pay without my consent. Day 3, gather evidence of Daniel's debts. Day 4, draft the notice converting them to tenants at will, effective immediately. Day 5, prepare the speech, the words I would deliver when the mask finally came off. Day 6, secure alternative housing for myself so I could never be accused of acting out of desperation. Day 7, meet with Chloe again, finalize the eviction notice. Day 8, confront them, reveal the truth, deliver the final blow. I looked at the list, the ink dark against the page, and felt a calm settle into me. This was no longer grief. This was clarity. This was control. I opened my laptop and began to type an email. 8 days? That is what I promised. On the 8th day, you will have my answer. Ma, I read it aloud, letting the words hang in the room. Then I clicked send. The quiet after the message left me still, steady. For the first time, I felt no fear, only certainty. I closed the laptop and turned to the papers once more. The smile on my face was not warm. It was not forgiving. It was sharp, cold, deliberate. This game, I said softly, has only just begun. I turned off the lamp, leaving only the glow of the city outside my window. The shadows stretched across the floor, long and heavy. I sat in the dark and let them surround me. In that darkness, I did not feel alone. I felt powerful. They thought they had forced me into a corner, but what they did not understand was simple. The corner they thought I was trapped in was a stage, and in 8 days, they would realize I was not their victim. I was the one writing the script, and my play would end with their ruin. The 8th day arrived like a storm I had been waiting for. I woke early, long before the sun stretched across Phoenix, And I sat at my desk with the documents already spread out in front of me, the mortgage statement, the deed, the contracts with my name hidden beneath the veil of divine investments. It was all here, the truth ready to be unveiled. I imagined their faces when the deadline struck. I pictured them scrambling, checking accounts, searching for money that wasn't there. For the first time in years, I felt calm, not nervous, not afraid, just ready. By noon, the phone rang. My mother's name lit up the screen. I let it ring twice before answering, my voice steady, almost too calm. "Lindsay," she said, her tone softer than I'd heard in years. "Honey, I know we've said things. We were angry. We didn't mean them. But now the payment is due. You need to do this for us. The house is family. It's everything we have." Her words spilled out like sugar melting in hot water, too sweet, too desperate. I closed my eyes for a moment, listening. The same mother who once called me a burden, now pleading for me to save her pride. Before I could respond, another voice cut in. Daniel, sharp and impatient. "Stop begging, Mom!" he snapped. Then to me, "Just do it, Lindsay. Do it, or we'll lose everything. You don't want that on your shoulders, do you?" His voice was harsher than hers, angrier, but beneath it I could hear fear. The fear of losing what he had always taken for granted. I let the silence linger. I let them feel it. The weight of my quiet pressed through the line. Finally, I said softly, "I'll be there soon." When I arrived, the air inside the house was thick with panic. Papers cluttered the dining table. My father paced the floor, his face pale, his jaw tight. My mother sat stiffly, her glass of wine untouched beside her hand. Daniel stood near the window, arms crossed, eyes darting like a trapped animal. The room that once felt like home was now a cage filled with desperation. I walked in slowly, each step deliberate, the sound of my heels striking the floor, echoing through the silence. None of them spoke at first. They only watched me, their eyes filled with a mix of hope and resentment. Finally, my father broke the silence. "Well, do you have it?" I didn't answer. Instead, I placed a heavy folder on the table, the thud of it snapping the tension in half. My mother leaned forward, her eyes wide. "What is that?" she whispered. I slid the folder toward them, opening it with calm precision. Inside, the contracts and mortgage statements lay in perfect order, the name Divine Investments stamped across each page. My voice was cold when I spoke. "You never paid for this house, not once in 4 years. Every payment, every dollar came from me." They stared at me unblinking as if my words were another language. I continued, sharper now. "I've been behind it all. I used Divine Investments to shield you, to keep your pride intact. You sat here for years thinking you were holding this house together. You weren't. I was." My mother's lips parted, her voice trembling. No, that can't be true. She stopped, searching for words, but none came. Daniel stepped closer, his face twisted with disbelief. "You expect us to believe this? That you, of all people, were paying for us? That's impossible." I pulled out the deed, sliding it across the table until it landed in front of him. "Impossible?" I said, my tone sharp enough to cut glass. "Look closer. Every signature, every record. My company, my money, my house." My father finally sank into a chair, his face gray. His voice was low, hollow. "No, this can't be." I stood taller, my voice steady and unyielding. "I am the owner of Divine Investments, which means I am the rightful owner of this house. It has never belonged to you, not for the past 4 years, and it never will again." The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. My mother covered her mouth with her hand, eyes glistening. My father stared at the deed as if it were a gravestone. Daniel clenched his fists, his chest rising and falling with sharp, angry breaths. I let the silence stretch, savoring it. The truth had landed and its weight crushed them. I spoke again, my voice final, unflinching. This house, the one you mocked me in, the one you used to humiliate me, it's mine, and from this moment on, you live here only because I allow it. I gathered the rest of the documents back into the folder and held it tightly against my chest. Their eyes followed me, desperate, furious, broken. Then I added the words that cut deepest. The truth is simple. You never had power over me. Not once you thought you were pulling my strings. But every step of the way, I was holding yours. And with that, I turned toward the door, leaving them in the ruins of their own arrogance. The room fell into silence, the kind of silence that presses down on your skin, that makes every breath feel heavier than the last. No one spoke. No one moved. My father's eyes fixed on the deed. His lips parted, trembling. No, no, this isn't real. It can't be. Not you. Not this. His voice cracked, collapsing under the weight of disbelief. I reached into my bag and pulled out another folder. The seal of my attorney burned red against the paper. I placed it on the table, slowly, deliberately. These, I said, my voice steady, are legal notices. From today forward, you are not owners. You are tenants, month to month, nothing more. The words struck like a hammer. My mother gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her wine glass tipped, spilling red across the white tablecloth like blood. Tenants? No! Lindsay, you can't do this. This house is ours. It's family. You wouldn't dare. I already did. My tone cut through her plea. The law doesn't see you anymore. The law sees me. Then Daniel erupted. He shoved his chair back, fists slamming on the table. His voice rose, sharp and vicious. You think this makes you strong? You think this lasts? You're nothing. I've already sent your old files to your company. Every mistake, every shadow you tried to bury, it's all there now. They'll see who you really are. They'll drag you out in front of everyone, and you'll regret ever crossing me. His words crashed like thunder. My mother's lips curved in a faint, desperate smile. My father lifted his head, hope flickering in his tired eyes. But I only smiled back. Not their smile. Not hopeful. Cold. Sharp. Certain. I reached into my bag again. My hand emerged with a silver USB. I set it gently on the table. The click of plastic against wood echoed like a gunshot. You mean these files? I asked softly. Daniel's grin faltered. I leaned in, my eyes locked on his, unblinking. I already sent them to the board. Every altered document, every falsified line, with your name on them, not mine. Do you understand what that means, Daniel? They won't fire me, they'll fire you. His color drained. He stepped back slightly, his hands twitching at his sides. My mother's voice cracked, shrill and desperate. Daniel, tell me she's lying. Tell me she made this up. He shook his head too quickly. She's bluffing. She has to be bluffing. But his silence betrayed him. His eyes gave him away. I pushed the USB across the table until it stopped in front of him. Go on, I whispered. Plug it in. Watch the proof. Read your name on every page. See for yourself. The only one exposed here is you. The room collapsed into silence again, but this silence wasn't mine. It was theirs. The silence of fear. The silence of a plan collapsing. I wasn't finished. I pulled out another envelope, thicker, heavier. I tossed it onto the table. Papers spilled across the surface. Overdue notices, gambling slips, unpaid debts. Daniel's eyes widened. My voice cut like steel. I kept these hidden once, to protect you, to protect the family. But now they're mine to use. One word out of place, and every creditor in this state will know your name. You won't just lose this house. You'll lose everything." Daniel staggered back. His chest heaved, his fists clenched, but his bravado was gone. My father groaned, his face buried in his hands. His voice broke. "Lindsay, please, stop this. We're family. You can't destroy us like this." I turned to him. My tone was steady. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. "Family? You called me a burden. You sat there while they mocked me. You thought silence was harmless. But silence is betrayal, and you will pay for it." I reached into the folder one final time. A tenancy notice, signed and sealed by my lawyer. I placed it in the center of the table like a verdict. "You have 30 days. After that, you're out. Unless you can pay the rent. And we both know you can't." Their eyes widened, but no words came. My mother's tears spilled. My father sat broken. Daniel stood trembling, rage burning, but trapped by fear. I gathered the papers back into my bag. I stood tall. I looked at them one last time. "You thought betrayal was your weapon," I whispered. "But truth was mine, and truth always wins." I turned for the door. Their silence followed me. Heavy, crushing, but not for me, for them. Because in that silence, they finally understood. I was never their victim. I was their reckoning. The morning came heavy, the kind of morning that settles on your chest, pressing down, daring you to breathe. I stood on the porch. The house was behind me. Mine. The street stretched wide and empty, but not silent. Neighbors lingered, watching, whispering. They had heard. They always hear. The Harpers were leaving. Gregory staggered down the steps first, a suitcase dragged behind him, his shoulders bent low, lower than I had ever seen. This was not the man who once nodded proudly as others mocked me. This was a man broken by his own silence. Each bag seemed to weigh more than the last, not just with clothes, but with shame, with years of pride now crushed into dust. Behind him, Marianne clutched a jewelry box to her chest, the same one she polished every Sunday morning, showing it off like a trophy. Now her hands trembled. Her eyes darted to the neighbors watching. The queen of appearances, stripped of her crown, and Daniel. Daniel kicked a suitcase down the steps. The wheels clattered against stone. His face burned red, his eyes wild, furious. He muttered curses under his breath, spitting venom with every step. But even his rage couldn't hide the fear beneath it. They looked at me only when they had to, when their eyes couldn't avoid mine. I stood there, still, silent. The house loomed behind me, calm, waiting. Marianne paused by the car. For a moment, I thought she might beg, plead for mercy. But she didn't. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her gaze full of bitterness. She turned away quickly, as if I were something she could not bear to face. Gregory stopped halfway down the path. His chest heaved. His breath came in ragged bursts. He turned. His voice cracked. "You'll regret this, Lindsay. We are still blood, no matter what you think." I met his eyes, cold, clear. Blood is not an excuse to betray. Blood is not a shield for cruelty. Goodbye, Gregory. I didn't call him father. Not anymore. His face fell. His shoulders sagged further. He turned back, dragging the suitcase across the pavement. Daniel was last. Always last. His jaw clenched so hard I could hear the grind of his teeth. His words spat like venom. The house was gone. Sold. The papers signed. I walked through it one last time before handing over the keys. Empty walls. Bare rooms. No voices left, only echoes of the past. Every corner held a memory, some good, most bitter. This was the place where they mocked me, the place where they laughed while calling me a burden, the place they thought they controlled me. But now, it was finished. I stepped outside, the sun cutting sharp across the porch. I locked the door for the final time, and as the click of the lock echoed, I felt it. Freedom. The money from the sale was mine, clean, unshackled. I could have kept it. I could have built a new life for myself alone. But my pain had taught me something larger. Betrayal is not rare. It wears many faces, and too often, it hides in family. I remembered the messages, the cruel words, the way they schemed to use me, to bleed me dry. And I realized there are countless others like me, silent, afraid, bound by blood or love that has twisted into chains. I could not change what they did to me, but I could change what I did with the aftermath, so I created the Harper Foundation. Yes, the name carried theirs, but this time it was mine to reshape. A legacy not of greed, but of survival. A place for victims of financial abuse, for people who had been trapped by those they trusted most. The day of the launch came. Bright lights, rows of chairs, strangers in the audience, survivors, supporters, journalists. I stepped onto the stage. My heels clicked against the floor, steady, certain. I gripped the podium. For a moment, the past rose in my chest, the old fear, the doubt. But then, it vanished. I had already conquered it. I began. Sometimes, the ones who hurt us most are the ones we call family, the ones who should protect us, but instead choose betrayal. Those wounds cut the deepest. The room was silent, every eye fixed on me. I drew a breath and continued. But betrayal does not define us. What defines us is how we rise afterward. What defines us is whether we let their cruelty break us, or whether we build something stronger out of the pieces they tried to shatter. My voice steadied. It rang clearer. I was called a burden. I was told I owed everything and deserved nothing. For years, I gave, until there was nothing left of me. And when they tried to break me for good, I stood taller. I used their betrayal as fire. And with that fire, I built this foundation. A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience. Faces nodded. Eyes glistened. I pressed on. This foundation is for every person who has been silenced, for every voice told it doesn't matter, for every soul who gave everything and was left with nothing. You matter. Your truth matters. And no one, no family, no partner, no friend, has the right to take your freedom away. Applause rose. It filled the hall. It washed over me, loud and steady. But even as they clapped, my thoughts turned inward, because this wasn't just about them. This was about me. The truth I had uncovered in blood and tears. That love without respect is not love at all. That family without loyalty is nothing but a cage. That sacrifice means nothing if it is demanded, and everything if it is freely given. That was the price of their betrayal. They lost the house. They lost their pride. They lost me. And what did I gain? Myself. Later, when the speeches ended, I stepped outside. The Arizona sun stretched across the horizon, painting everything gold. Warmth touched my skin, and for the first time in years, I felt light. I walked forward slowly, savoring the moment. Behind me, the shadows of my family's cruelty dissolved. Ahead of me, the path glowed with possibility, and I smiled because I was free. Because betrayal had forged me, not broken me. Because I had turned their cruelty into strength. I whispered almost to myself. The truth is simple. They thought I was weak. They thought I would cave, but I rose. I always will. And that is the answer to betrayal. Not silence, not surrender, but standing tall in the light. The sun burned brighter, the light surrounded me, and I kept walking. Betrayal taught me the cruelest lesson, but also the most important one. Blood is not an excuse. Love is not real without respect. Family is nothing without loyalty. The price of their betrayal was losing me forever. The gift of their betrayal was that I finally found myself. You think you've won? This isn't over. One day, you'll regret crossing me. I tilted my head slightly. My smile was sharp. No, Daniel. The only one who regrets is you. His eyes widened just for a moment because he knew he had already lost. He pulled the suitcase harder, yanking it to the car. The trunk slammed shut. The neighbors whispered louder now. Some shook their heads, others sneered. Their fall was public, humiliating. Gregory had been a man of respect once. Now his friends would see him as weak, unable to keep his own home. His silence had cost him his dignity. Marianne had thrived on gossip, on appearances, on control. But her glittering image was gone. No one would listen to her lies anymore. Not after watching her dragged out of her own house. And Daniel, his downfall had already begun. The board had received the files. His employer knew the truth. Soon his job would vanish, his reputation along with it. All that would remain were debts and shame. That was their price. That was the cost of betrayal. The car door slammed. The engine roared. Slowly, too slowly, the car rolled away from the curb. I watched until the taillights disappeared, until the street was empty again. Then I turned back toward the house. My house. The porch steps creaked beneath my feet. I stepped inside. The air felt different now, lighter. I closed the door. Not softly, not gently. It slammed, loud, final. The sound echoed through the halls like a verdict, and in that echo, I felt it. Freedom. No more chains. No more whispers. No more hands pulling me down. From this moment on, I was free. Free of their shadows. Free of their lies. Free of their weight. The Harpers had paid the price for their betrayal, and I had claimed my life back.